Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast, your one-stop shop for every NFL news, all of your NFL news, and all of your fantasy football requirements. We are now 3 weeks away, ladies and gentlemen, from the draft. This one should be a good one. Keep hearing rumors and swirls of trades and stuff that might happen and other players that might be traded during the draft. So this is looking to be a really fun one, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Raj and Fab. And if you missed our episode last week, we did a deep dive on all the top QBs that are slated to go next in the next draft, in the next NFL draft. This week, we will be diving into the running backs. So we'll do another deep dive on about 7 or 8 running backs here who are slated to go in a loaded running back class this year. There should be a lot of starters in the NFL next season, but we'll definitely get into that a little later. As always, guys, please remember to like, follow, subscribe to all our social medias, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Also listen to us on anywhere you get your podcasts. We really much appreciate it. Now, guys, just diving into quickly, Aaron Rodgers Watch 2025 continues. This is now week 4, I believe, from the started free agency, and Rodgers is still without a team. He did have a little throwing session with DK Metcalf at UCLA over the weekend, and it seems like it went well. So, would you be surprised if he didn't land with the Steelers right now? Like what's going on right now? Anyone have a take on this?
The date went well. It was there a little coffee?
I mean,
was it a Tinder date?
He threw it to DK without any defender, so I hope it went well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like an Aaron Rodgers pro day in 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just sign already. I don't know. Like, and again, I'm not putting pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I get the whole thing about like it's his swan song. It's the last team he's going to sign with. I get all that. Just sign, man. Jeez, it's enough now already. Come on. Like, you're already throwing passes to your future wide receiver. Like, let's go. Get it over with already. What are you waiting for?
He's waiting for big night at Pat McAfee's
honestly,
show. Pat McAfee's live show at PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh. He's going to be there. He's going to announce this. It's
there it is.
clear.
That's what he's waiting for.
This is all a work.
You know what?
This is LeBron James decision 2025.
Yeah.
And everyone's been saying that just because like now it's out there that he won't do it that way because everyone says that he likes to do things his own way. So now if everyone knows it would be so funny if that actually happened. Definitely boost ratings for McAfee, that's for sure.
It's gonna be that.
But look, the owner today spoke and seems optimistic. Says like it's probably likely only a matter of time. But then I heard Big Ben on his podcast say that the reason why he's holding out is the same thing kind of what Fab alluded to, like just sign already. Like if you're going to go there, just sign. Big Ben seems to think like he's still holding out hope for the Vikings, that the Vikings come calling because they have the more complete roster. But the watch is still on. We will wait as well as all of you. So as soon as we have the news, we'll definitely break it to you. Another interesting owner speak. The Browns owner Jim Haslam spoke to the media Monday and said, "We took a big swing and a miss for Watson." Seems like weird timing since he's still on the roster, but does that pretty much assure that he'll never be wearing a Browns uniform again?
Never wearing a Browns uniform again. Probably going to be wearing one while he's on the bench. But I feel like this pretty much assures that they're going to be looking for other quarterback options in 2025. Kirk Cousins to the Browns is still a very hot rumor. I know that it's been doused with a little bit of water, but I feel like it's been picking up steam lately. I don't know how that's going to work from a cap perspective, but at the same time, I feel like it is still very much on there, and I think it's still on the radar. And then you have to figure that, if Kirk Cousins doesn't go to the Browns, then they have to draft a quarterback. So then it's going to be Sanders at 2, because or else who's going to be starting for them in the beginning of the year?
Kenny
I'm
Pickett.
not convinced. I'm not convinced.
High on Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, which leads me, which just, my God, who's high on Kenny Pickett? Sorry.
I'm not convinced the Browns are picking Shedeur anymore, and we had tweeted it in our account today that like FanDuel, the odds for the Browns,
Hmm.
highest odds or most likely was Abdul Carter at that pick, and then Shedeur Sanders, and then Haslam kind of made a quote about how it basically sounded like a ringing endorsement for Stefanski and Andrew Barry, the GM and coach, on it sounds like they're going to be patient with them, and that it's not a make or break year where they're going to get fired with regardless of what happens. So to me, that leads me to believe that's more BPA,
Hmm.
and maybe they go with Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, or maybe they trade back into the first round to get Shedeur at a later pick. But I don't think it's a lock that Shedeur is there. And I mean, for Watson, you were saying, well, what's going to happen with the cap when the Broncos cut Russell Wilson? Weren't they? They were on the hook for most of the cap, correct?
Because there was
Yeah, very true.
the guaranteed money, but
So
his whole contract's guaranteed. So I don't know what's left on it, to be
right,
honest with you. But
right.
um, I mean, to excuse me, on that point, I don't know. Like Abdul Carter would be um, for sure a good pick, but after you just re-signed Garrett for all those years, I know it'd be nice to have a fresh one and have like two on the outside that it's pretty would be pretty unstoppable defensive wise. But I think in terms of Kirk Cousins, you're right, Fab. I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and he might make his way there, but only after the draft. I don't think he's gonna be. There's no way he's gonna get into another panic situation where they draft, a quarterback there. So I think we'll have to wait on that. But
That's a good point.
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's stalling Kirk Cousins from
Yeah.
being traded is that he doesn't want to be Michael Penix again this year. So he waits. But some just quick touch upon some rule changes for the upcoming season. They have the coaches meetings this week in Florida. The kickoff rule was changed where the ball will be placed on the 35-yard line for touchbacks, where it was 30 last season. So they're expecting a lot more returns. The OT rule was also modified, so it's going to be a 10-minute quarter, and both teams will be given a chance to possess the ball, similar to the playoff OT rules, but in the playoffs it's 15 minutes. But someone said something interesting today. What happens if someone possesses it for 10 minutes and they score? Does does the team get like one last shot to like chuck it down the field if the time expires?
I don't think
Or
so.
does the time because the rule says the teams will be given a chance to possess?
Yeah, but it's a 10-minute quarter. So I was thinking the same thing because for me this is like you allow both teams to have a possession, which I think is great because the OT rule was always very it was very weird. I never liked it to begin with. But then you reduce the quarter down from 15 to 10 minutes, so a team can have a 9-minute drive, score a field goal, and then that's it. Like the
Yeah,
game is
but it's
over.
they're hard to 9-minute drives are not the
Well, it's not
norm, right? Very
impossible. It's just like it's
Yeah,
almost like a wash at that point. Like you're not operating or not changing the rule with the intention to make the game more competitive from how the OT rules were before. From like when you're reducing the amount of time within the quarter. So
no,
even if the
it
team
was
has
always 10 minutes.
it's always 10
It
minutes.
was always 10 minutes to OT.
fine. I still don't like it. I think it should be a 15-minute quarter, a continuous, both teams play, and just how it would be. Basically, it should be a fifth quarter, and then at the end, if it's still like tied at the end, then it's a tie. Like, but
Yeah, I think they're just trying to find a way where they don't go a whole other quarter and play a whole like other quarter of football and try to
And
find a
a,
happy medium in terms of like, okay, both of you will get the ball even if the person scores a touchdown. So
NFLPA, man.
yeah,
I think the
yeah,
NFLPA is stepping in here that
yeah, for
they
sure.
want to reduce injuries, which I think is very fair.
Yeah,
that's
especially with
that's
all the
fair.
talk of the 18 game
Yeah.
schedule now coming to the table too. So um with this new rule change, we finally came into the 21st century, I guess. I guess 20 years after tennis did it, but method of measuring first downs will switch to camera-based technology in 2025. So the chain gang will remain in secondary capacity. So there'll be, I guess, the if something goes wrong, they'll be there for that. And then there's expanded replay assist for penalties. So the
Yeah,
penalties that will include defenseless player, face mask, horse collar, tripping, and roughing slash running into the kicker. must have clear and obvious video evidence to overturn the call, but they will not be able to call penalties via replay. So only be able
Okay.
to correct a call that was made incorrectly. And to the rules that didn't pass, to eliminate automatic first downs for defensive penalties was not passed. That was comically brought up by the Lions, who have been the most penalized team in
Ridiculous.
holding and defensive pass interference in the last 3 years, which this rule didn't make sense, and it definitely didn't pass. And then the tush push was and playoff seeding, are tabled until May. So the tush push, we all know, is the Eagles' famous QB sneak play. And then the playoff seeding, where I think it was
Standings.
the Lions again.
Yeah.
The
The
Lions
Lions
again
against,
brought it up. They wanted to bring up if you're the wild card team and you have a better record, you should host the home game, which is
Yeah, I
ludicrous. That
disagree with
makes
100%.
divisions.
Yeah.
It makes divisions nothing. And why have divisions at that point? So that was it, guys, for our news and nugs for the week. Now we're going to do a deep dive on our running backs. And our first running back needs no introduction. He absolutely tore up the college football season last year. And some also think he was robbed of the Heisman Trophy. I think that's a very popular opinion. We have Mr. Ashton Jeanty. I'm going to feel like Fab today with these running back names.
I know.
So
So far, you
very
guys are
keen
doing
for
worse
the
than
one.
I am. I think we got to change this.
That was an easy one, man.
I know it was an easy one. And
We've only been talking about it for the last 4 months.
Yeah, Ashton Jeanty.
Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Jeanty. Boise State. So this is obviously a guy who's slated to be first running back off the board. I don't think there's any debate about that. We have some comps similar to Alvin Kamara or a supercharged Maurice Jones-Drew. So I think that's a pretty fair comparison. I don't know if you guys saw him without his shirt on at his pro day, but he looks shredded. It reminds me of the A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf picture way back when they were just two guys just jacked in a picture. It was insane. But going into 2024 stats, he had 2,600 rushing yards, 29 TDs, 7 yards per carry. It's just video game numbers. Also had 23 catches for 138 yards and another touchdown. So 30 total TDs last year. Just insane. Raj, I know you've talked highly about him a lot, so I just want to get your take right now on Gentry.
Yeah, it's the contact balance with him, really. And even just to further add to the stats, 1,800 yards after contact, 143 missed contacts forced that led FBS, 5.2 yards after contact per carry, and that also led FBS. So I think for him it's the contact balance. It's bouncing off defenders. It's the lateral movement to find a hole, to keep the speed, and to burst into it. And like I just saw so many runs of his where he's just knocking down 4 to 5 defenders, whether it's with elusiveness, whether it's with straight power. He didn't run at in the 40. He didn't do his pro day. He didn't do the 40 at his pro day. So I think some people may be concerned about his long speed. If you watch his film, if you watch his highlights, I have zero concerns whatsoever. So I think like total package, the supercharged Maurice Jones-Drew for me like makes a lot of sense in terms of if you look at the height of Maurice Jones-Drew, he had an all-pro season. I think that all-pro season he had like 340 carries, 1,600 yards, 8 TDs. He had 3 straight years of 1,300 yards. So at his peak, MJD was one of the top backs in the league. So
He was a beast.
He was an absolute beast that people forget about it. So like small contact, like compact, 5'8", 200 pounds. I think if you were to draw any amount of weaknesses, is the volume. 750 carries in his 3 years at Boise, so that's a lot of carries. Do you have concerns about that in terms of how he will hold up in the NFL? No, he hasn't had injuries, but it's just a lot of carries, right? It's like literally 2-3 years worth of NFL carries already coming in. The competition, Mountain West isn't great. Mind you, he did very well against Oregon. I think he had 192 yards. And then, how good is he as a pass catcher? So to me, though, this guy's like an elite player. I don't see any holes in him, and like this guy has a chance to be at least a 1 or 2 time All-Pro. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but highly, highly effective starter.
Yeah, I definitely tend to agree. And as far as best fits, Fab, where do you see him going that fits perfectly?
Well, you have to look at the teams that are actually running back needy, and that's kind of the issue. I mean, running backs have made a bit of a resurgence as far as being a premier position in the last few years. We've seen what it can do with Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley and even Derrick Henry, right? So the teams that really need a running back are the ones that should be focusing on Gentry, and I think it's best kept secret or not really. There should be the Las Vegas Raiders. Um, they could use a wide receiver, but at that spot of picking six, they're going to be deciding on whether to take, Ted McMillan or to take Gentry. And I think the ceiling for Gentry is just way, way, way too high. And the floor is also high too.
Mm-hmm.
Raj hit on all the points. I need to go over them right now. I know the whole breakaway speed is a thing, right? But he think he had the most amount of 15 plus yard rushes in college football last year. So that to me is a non-issue whatsoever. So if I'm the Raiders, I would be looking at Gentry and I'd be running away with it, quite frankly. I don't see how at that spot you take another position or another player at that value because the top five, right? So obviously the top three, Titans, the Browns, the Giants are not going running back. Neither are the Patriots, even though they do have a bit of a need there, but I don't think that they have other more pressing needs than running back at that point. The Jaguars, and then you have the Raiders at six. He should be booking a ticket to Las Vegas and just sticking around there for a while.
Does he, if for whatever reason the Raiders decide to go wide receiver or another position, does he get past the Bears, knowing that
He should.
it's Ben Johnson there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing that Ben Johnson had a Jameer Gibbs player that he loved in Detroit, does he get past Chicago?
Again, he shouldn't. He should not. He shouldn't even be there at 10. But if he is, then I think Ben Johnson is gonna pull the trigger and take him at 10. Because you have to figure this guy is probably coming in as one of the, if not the most polished product available to draft, right? Like in the same vein as Abdul Carter, as Travis Hunter, like uh, take position away, like which ones are graded the highest. He's graded absolutely one of the highest, if not the highest player, depending on who you speak to. So you get him at 10. It's like, okay, you know what? The value just supersedes anything that I can be getting at that spot. It just makes no sense for me to pick any other player.
And just quickly, I want to take your both your takes real quick. Where do you see him and in terms of fantasy next year? Is he a locked and loaded RB1 or top 12, or do you have to kind of wait and see what his situation is? Raj.
So I'll answer it in this sense where if you look back at the last, call it 10 years of running backs taken in the first round, like for me, I think he's a better prospect than Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, the disastrous Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Jacobs, it gets a little iffy. I think it's, but if you look at Josh Jacobs' first season in the league, he was 240 carries, 1,100 yards, 7 TDs. That's like RB2 productivity, right? So that's where I see him, like high RB2 productivity. And I don't see in a situation where, you depending on where he goes, like if it's the Bears, I could see RB1 productivity for sure.
Easy.
The only reason maybe I hesitate with the Raiders is that I could see a scenario where they say, "Hey, maybe let's invest in the offensive line first." But seeing Pete Carroll there and like having to like put in a kind of a defensive minded, run the football identity, I think the Raiders makes a lot of sense. But yeah, like I think the floor is like mid RB2 for sure. If you factor in like what Najee Harris and others did previously, and I think he's a better prospect.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair floor, but I would not be surprised if he hits a top 10 RB next year. I really wouldn't. And because this reminds me of when Zeke was taken by the Cowboys, and he was taken fourth overall, I think.
Yeah.
And first 3 years of his NFL career, he just ripped it. And then the year after that, Leonard Fournette, who had a fantastic year with the Jaguars in his rookie season, not as good as Zeke, obviously. So this gives you shades of that a little bit about how like a guy coming into a very good coming into a very good situation where he can produce right away and will be the focal point of the offense. I don't see how this does not translate to fantasy success.
So you're okay with drafting him as your first RB?
Yes, I am okay with drafting my first RB. Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean,
Uh,
you tell me, sorry, this is assuming he goes to the Raiders and or or the Bears, not and the Bears, the Raiders or the Bears. If he goes to a different situation where he might be splitting carries, yeah, I'm going to change my tune, obviously. But like we're talking about from the Bears and Raiders perspective,
I think either way, he doesn't get the full workload. Um, Regardless of what situation he goes, I don't think he's going to be a 3 down back right off the bat.
he has to work on his pass pro to be there for the third down, and that's a bit of a knock
That's
against him just because he was shorter, like he's 5'8", right?
yeah.
So
Coaches like the
yeah,
blocking back on 3rd down.
yeah, that's the only thing against him. But then again, this guy's a beast. Like, give him the rock.
Yeah, definitely. Look, like I said, definitely. I think it's unanimous across the board, across the NFL world, that he's going to be the first one off the board. Then it starts to get a little dicey on which ones will go next, especially the next two. So the first one we have Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. Comparison to Joe Mixon, perhaps.
Hmm.
He also had a pretty good year last year. 281 carries, almost 1,700 yards, 15 TDs, and almost 6 yards per carry. Very, very great numbers. He also had 4.35 yards after contact, which was third in the nation, which is pretty jarring numbers. This guy is a big boy, 6 foot, 221 pounds. So definitely a NFL running back size wise. Fab, what stood out with you for Hampton?
The entire combination that he has with size, explosiveness, and lower body strength. Also, the fact that like he, I think he's more of a true 3 down back, maybe than Gentry, just because he has really more natural hands as a pass catcher, and his pass protection is very good. So when we've mentioned it a few times right now, like whenever running backs are drafted in the NFL, like how do they get the most amount of playing time is if they're also solid in pass protection, and Omarion Hampton has that. So I think that's going to be the biggest benefactor for him. Super elusive, great yards after contact too. Like not necessarily up to Genty's level, but very much on par. I mean, it's hard not to like him from a perspective from a prospective point. I even got some comps to Rashard Mendenhall, Knack, your boy over there. So like I think those are very applicable characteristics. Those are very applicable comps where you can see Omarion Hampton also having pretty quick success in the NFL. Right? I mean, he's nice height, nice weight. It's everything you want in a solid running back and a 3 down back. Um, his the only knock I saw against him is that there's a his vision could lead to some boomer bust production depending on the offensive line. So obviously, I think he's going to have to go into a very good situation. So if he goes to, for example, the Bears, we spoke about before with the revamped offensive line, he could have some excellent production there. But if he goes to a team that's still working on beefing up their offensive line, it might hamper his fantasy production for sure, and also maybe even his production as an NFL player, and especially in his rookie year. But this is another guy too where, we spoke about it already, right? The RB class is very deep this year. I mean, you have to wonder where Mario Hampton would be drafted if Gentry was in this draft class this year, right? Because he has all the qualities that you're looking for in a 3 down back from every single level. So I think he's going to be an excellent product going forward.
For sure. So and I guess like I know that running backs now are kind of brushed aside, and I think this year with the resurgence of Saquon Barkley going to a good team, good offense, good offensive line, he got paid like the best running back in the league as well, and there was a resurgence. You saw Henry past the age of 30, who was still putting up jaunting numbers, but it's hard to expect two running backs to go in the top 10, I believe, in a
Mm.
draft. Raj, where do you see him? Where do you see his best fit? And is it possible that two can be picked in the top 10?
Yeah, so I think he's going to be a first rounder for sure. I think what's great about him is, and sometimes we take for granted, some running backs are more suited for gap scheme runs where like the offense line is man on man, hat on hat, and then some running backs are more suited for zone where they stretch it outside and cut back in. I think both Gentry and Hampton are really good for both. So that's where I could see Denver. Denver, they ran a lot of gap and zone. it was fairly equal for both of them. And the GM, I think it's George Patton, he even said they're going to draft a running back in this class. I don't think it's no secret about it. They lost
They did.
Javonte Williams. He would pair quite nicely with Audric Estime, actually. And then from a running back from another team that's running back needy, I think you have to think the Cowboys. I just don't know if where they're picking at 12 is realistic. But to me, when I see Hampton, I see a guy who's bell cow size. I think Fab hit it right on the nail. Bell cow size, great combination of size and speed, good hands as well. That's why I really like the Joe Mixon comp. Like from a body perspective, from the way he plays, enough elusiveness up the middle, but still a lot of power. He looks a lot like Mixon to me. So I think the Cowboys could definitely benefit. I think the Bengals too, because I feel like Chase Brown, with his slender build, might not be, I don't know if you want him to have 90% of the snaps.
Right.
So that could be an interesting one. And then another one would be the Jaguars. They're at 5, I believe, the Jags. So I think that's a little bit high. Would they trade back into the first? I don't know if you do that for running back, but I'm firmly of the camp that Hampton is going to go in the first round.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the first round grade because there are some running back needy teams that are for sure going to chomp at the bit if this guy drops to them. I was thinking even as a wild card, the Jaguars with Gentty. That's why I was thinking of something like imagine they just kind of throw like a wild card in the draft and they just take him. They need a player. They try to trade Etienne maybe, or Etienne just becomes like the third down guy. Who knows? Um, I definitely agree with the Cowboys. It could be a little rich, but I did see some mocks that had him, had them taking him at 12. But then after that, you had Miami, the Colts, Atlanta, the Cardinals. Like you said, the Bengals maybe at 17. Then you have the Broncos. Like I agree with you. I don't think he makes it past the Broncos if he falls there. And then another interesting one to see would be the Steelers following at 21. Would they really go running back again in the first round? I'm not too sure. But if someone of his caliber maybe becomes available, they may think about it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if the Cardinals are enamored with Trey Benson, and they're going to be running the football a lot. They ran the football a ton last year, and they run a ton of gap scheme. I think they're 68% gap scheme. That would be a great fit if they feel that. Well, A, James Conner, he's getting up there in age, and B, they're not super enamored with Trey Benson. I think the Cardinals are picking 17th, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be
16th,
interesting.
yeah.
16th, yeah, thanks. So that could be an interesting one as well.
Yeah, I don't see I feel like they have more needs, and having Benson there, he was only there. It was only his first year, right? So sometimes running backs, it could take some time, but I think they have more needs than that. But I could see it. I just like you said, I liked your first fit with the Broncos. They did lose Javonte Williams, so I think pretty pretty good fit there. And then I mean, if you keep going down the board, I don't know where he would be taken after. Like, are teams really looking for running backs after the Steelers? Is the Chargers maybe?
I was going to say the Chargers.
Will the Chargers go first round running back?
I mean, they have Najee signed to a 1-year contract, and after that, they have who?
There's not much behind there.
Well, that's it, right? So if they're not going to be taking him at this 22nd overall, I mean, I think the Chargers could be in for running back at some point in the draft this year. If it doesn't happen at 22, but I would not be surprised if they take one.
I've heard people say Commanders. There's been a lot of talk about Commanders.
I thought
recently.
About the Commanders too, honestly, because they have
Brian
Eckler,
Robinson
who's
and
up in
Eckler.
age.
Brian Robinson is pretty serviceable in that offense, though.
Yeah,
but like that team is already borderline complete as far as like putting together an offensive production is concerned. Like, what are you missing right now? You're missing a top end running back, right?
Honestly, it's going to be interesting because like I said, these top end running backs. Like sometimes, like you don't think someone's going to fall to you, and then at one point, like you have no choice but to, okay, like we need to get this guy. We have to pull the trigger. Like it's just too good to be true that he fell to me. So
yeah,
the Commanders, man. Like you look at it, they're drafting 29th. Imagine he gets to 29 and he's sitting there, and they're like, you know what? But even wild card on the Bills, they're not paying James Cook, right?
Yeah.
If he gets to 30 and they can get a running back under contract on a rookie deal for potentially 5 years, I think that's maybe something they'd be willing to they'd be interested in.
Yeah, but I don't see him falling back behind the Broncos.
No,
I really don't. Yeah, I
I
think.
don't either. But stranger
Yeah,
things
for
have
sure.
definitely happened. Okay, moving right along to our number 3 on the list, Mr. TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. PFF Big Board, he's ranked 70th overall in the upcoming draft. He has shows comparisons to Jamal Charles and to a certain extent Aaron Jones. So explosive with great top speed and acceleration. 2024 stats: 1,100 yards, 12 TDs, and also had 400 receiving with 4 touchdowns. Fab, tell me about Henderson. What's to like about Henderson?
He's super elusive, like we've been saying already. Super agile. Great long speed. Like we've been seeing comps so far for Jamal Charles from an acceleration standpoint. Shades of Aaron Jones as well. I've noticed too, which are very very interesting. The issue that I have though with him, obviously from the lack of size, it's and this is I'm going to be saying this about both Ohio State running backs actually, is the fact that they were both productive in the same offense. I don't know how that's going to translate to the NFL. What I mean by that is that they both have very different physical traits, which can translate very well to the NFL, but within a part of a running back room. So I think TreVeyon Henderson is going to be a productive member to an RB room. I don't see him being able to do that 3 down back role. He might be more of a 3rd down roll back type thing, just because a little bit more slender, is a little bit lighter than the other running backs that might be out there. But the fact that variable speed component in the NFL has a high effort player, both running back and pass blocking situations, so he's going to be there on the more important downs. But as far as a 3 down back is concerned, I don't think he has it, in my opinion. I think now we start to get into the weeds of, like a 2nd round grade or a 3rd round grade for some of these guys. And I think TreVeyon Henderson is going to be the first one for me in that sense.
Yeah, and I think people are still again, these second and third round running backs are going to be really good, So
Yeah.
it's you're not
Exactly.
you're getting such good value at drafting in the second or third round. But Raj, I want to hear what you think.
I think Fab. I agree with Fab. This is where the Cowboys can come back into play again. Like if if they don't want to necessarily go in the first round, they have the 44th pick, right? And we're saying TreVeyon
Yeah.
Henderson is in the second round, so I think he's definitely going to be a second rounder. Um, but he's a committee back. Like as I see now, his size, his makeup, to me that's a committee back. If we see comparisons to like Aaron Jones, yes, Aaron Jones can be a lead back, but when he is a lead back, what happens? He gets injured.
Yes.
Aaron Jones has been best when he's tethered to a more powerful back, which can spell him.
Hmm.
But I think he has the traits to be a very solid player. But I see him more as a committee guy. And I think Fab, your point on duos, really good running back duos in college is very fair, right? Like I'm looking back at some of them, some of the best duos, like Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. There's always one guy who is really good in college. They're
Hmm.
both really good in college, but only one of them kind of becomes really good in the pros, and the other guy becomes more of a specialist. Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson. That's those guys were both drafted actually really high.
Yeah.
Richardson though was the bust. And even Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown, right? Like they both kind of teetered away, but Ronnie Brown was, I think, considered the better player at one point. They both kind of juggled on that front, but um, I would agree with you on that front. I think Henderson is more, best as a committee.
And the Samaje Perine comp, Samaje Perine, fantastic player. He does exactly what he's expected to do of him within those situations that's required of him. From a fantasy perspective, he's not that relevant at all. But from a real NFL perspective, Samaje Perine is an excellent running back to have in the room, because you need that guy on 3rd downs. You need the guy to be able to run out on the flat and catch those balls and get your quarterbacks out of those messes and push the sticks whenever you need to. So from that perspective, I think like it's a very good body of work to look at as to how these guys can translate into the NFL when you have that running back committee in college.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think that like he's going to go to a team that needs a dual threat running back, right? Like he's going to be a 1-2 punch. And I think he could thrive in a like Kyle Shanahan type system, 49ers, Dolphins, something like that, or
Yes.
or even in a spread offense, like
Yes.
something like the Bills and the Chiefs. Like I think he would strive in those types of offenses because he is a dual guy and he could work together with someone else. And again, like you said, Raj, these are the type of players that need to stay healthy, right? And this is the way to do that, is limiting carries and splitting it with a counterpart.
Well, that's a great call, Knack, with the Niners, and because his type of profile is very cutback heavy, so zone scheme would make a ton of sense. Niners 56% zone scheme runs, and look, I personally really like Garendo. But there's been a lot of talk this offseason that the Niners do need to draft someone because they traded Jordan Mason to the Vikings. And I think this would be really an interesting get for the Niners, second, third round. And then I think the Chargers would be really interesting too. The Chargers, if you that's the type of running back, like Henderson's the type of running back you pair with a Najee Harris, where it's
Yeah,
two different
100%.
styles,
Yeah,
similar to what he had at Ohio State with Quinshon.
yeah. And look, and Najee's kind of, he knows how to be in a two running back system, right? He was
Mhm.
just in one in Pittsburgh. So look, I know he said that he's got more. He could have been utilized better in pass catching and this and that, but look, I think a 1-2 punch of both of them would be pretty lethal for. I was going to say San Diego, but L.A. I was
San Diego.
pulling a Raj there. Um,
Wales? Never mind.
Hartford.
I mean, as far as fantasy value for him, do you see? Is he more of that wide? Excuse me, RB3 territory flex
Flyer.
play
This is a flyer.
flyer
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, especially in his rookie season. If he gets into a really good situation, I can see it be relevant. But right off the top of my head, I don't see him even being drafted. To be honest,
Interesting. Not even being drafted.
no, because you have to figure that he has to go to a situation where he will be able to have some fantasy relevance, and then you're going to be drafting him just to have him on your bench for the first few games until he actually pops up, because he's not going to be the starter no matter where he goes.
Well, also, guys, there's a lot of good running backs in the league. Like, I'm going
Yeah,
through
Yeah.
yeah,
Tankathon, and it's like, we didn't talk about the Giants. Like, I don't know, Tyrone Tracy was good, but man, like a lot of ball security issues. But if you go through the list, like, there's some really, it's only 5 or 6 teams that really, really need a
yeah,
running back.
yeah,
Yeah. There's
yeah.
definitely, that's what's funny about this, is because it's such a stacked class, but there's
Hmm.
also so many solidified running backs in the league that it's like they may not get playing time wherever they go, right? Or limited playing time. I feel like there was a lot of running backs drafted last year, if I'm not mistaken, that came into offenses that, like I said, now we rosters are getting full and they may not have a potential place. So maybe we see some of these guys slide even in a loaded class, or knowing that it's a loaded class, that they'll load up on other positions before the
Exactly.
top dogs
Yeah.
go, and like people will wait maybe third, fourth round before they start grabbing one of these guys.
Well, that's why like J.K. Dobbins hasn't signed yet.
Yeah.
True.
Well, most of those guys now won't sign till after the draft
No,
for sure.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, moving on to his Ohio State teammate, Mr. Quinshon Judkins. I hope I said that right.
Nailed it.
I think
Sounds
there
right.
we go. Pretty
Nailed
close.
it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Last week you said
Um,
Judkins.
yeah, Judkins. Yeah, I know. I wanted that
Judkins,
was the one I wanted to make sure I nailed because I screwed up last week.
Judkins, mec.
Judkins. Yeah, it's my
Judkins.
Quebecois coming out over here. For those of you who don't know, Quebec is a city in Canada, Montreal, Canada.
Quebec is a city in Montreal, Canada. Knack doesn't even know either.
We're gonna edit this out for.
Nope.
Quebec is
Nope.
a city in the
I
country
can't.
of
I
North
can't edit with.
America.
I can't edit with Zencaster. So you're stuck, bud.
That's the only way people, our U.S. Followers, would have
Other
known
U,
where it
other
was.
U.S. Americans, other U.S.
Yes, other U.S. Americans who don't have maps and. Anyways, moving on. Quinshon Judkins showing comparisons to Nick Chubb or a worse receiving Todd Gurley. Fun fact about Todd Gurley: I don't think he's 30 years old yet.
Yeah.
Judkins had a 1,000-yard season with 14 touchdowns at Ohio State, and the 2 years prior was at Ole Miss and had 15 and 16 touchdowns. So he is a touchdown machine. Good height, good weight, similar to Henderson. So, Raj, what's there to like about Judkins?
Yeah, it's the size to me. 6 foot, 221, 4.48 speed. And even like the vertical jump, really solid. The broad jump, really good. So this guy's like a really good athlete, straight line runner with power. That's why I actually love the Nick Chubb comparison. Like when you think of Chubb,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of a looseness when he needs it, but it's turning the corner and running through guys. So no surprise, doing it out of Ohio State. I think we're jumping the gun a bit, but I think Cleveland could be a really interesting one here.
Yep.
I like this type of running back because the size provides bell cow ability, right? He doesn't. I think the weakness is where he's only caught, I believe, 22 balls per year and at a really low amount of yards. I don't think he's ever topped 161 yards in a given season. So this is kind of your prototypical, two for one down, two down back,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe he cedes his place to kind of a third down back afterwards. But this is like gap scheme fit. So, like, you guys remember Beanie Wells?
Yes.
Yeah.
This like he has the exact same size as Beanie Wells, a little bit faster, a little bit more athletic. And Beanie Wells had like that one really good year in Arizona. So like if you were to comp like kind of what his future would look like, I could see him as a more athletic Beanie Wells, and they both went to OSU. So, but I like him, like really fun player to watch.
Also would thrive in like a gap power scheme, like a run power
Mm-hmm.
scheme. Like teams like even the Titans or Steelers, I think would make great fits. Steelers run that ISO play on first down every time. But I think you nailed it with the Browns. I think that's a perfect fit, especially we're comparing him to Nick Chubb, younger, cheaper version. So I think he would fit in um, really well over there. Fab, anything to add on Judkins?
I I think after everything Roger just said, which I don't disagree with, I think a lot of his performance is going to come based off of the quality of the offensive line of the team he gets drafted to,
Yep.
and just because he is a very much a gap runner, so the strong eye formation and all that stuff, it's going to be right up his alley. He needs to go to a team with a very good offensive line, and that's going to be able to make those holes for him right at the beginning. He's a super physical runner, super physical, and again, just to go back to what we've been saying before, very, very good pass blocker as well. So he could be there on third downs. Just from a pass catching perspective, it might not be what you want from running back, but quality player. And again, we're getting into the later rounds over here, right? We're getting to the second round and third round, and this is going to be a um, fantastic depth piece to add to the running back room.
Do you see him having more fantasy value than Henderson just because he has that three down back bell cow kind of guy and being a touchdown machine like he was in college? He knows how to find the end zone. Like you said, he might see the field more because he can pass block. So do you
Yeah,
see him having more fantasy value?
I think he has more opportunity to have. I think he has a better opportunity to have more snaps and reps and more playing time, which will increase the chances of him having more fantasy points. I think that's where I'm looking, right, because he could be there if the guy's there on even on third down, and okay, like and Henderson is not. What does that tell you from a pass protection or even from getting the first two carries and then like hitting it on third down and just getting those extra 2 or 3 yards and even goal line back too? If he goes to a team with very good O line, he could have quality returns from a fantasy perspective, almost like a Gus the Bus type thing, right?
Agreed.
Interesting. Yeah.
Raj, any final thought?
No, I agree with Fab said.
Excellent. Our next man up here is the running back that has the best name out of the class, in my opinion, Mr. Cam Skattebo. Did I say that right? Scadabo, Scadabo,
I've heard
Scaramouche,
Scadaboo.
Scaramouche, Scadaboo.
I've heard Scadaboo. I've
Really?
heard
Scad
Scadabo. Yeah,
Scadabo, right?
I think it's Skattebo.
Scadabo. Yeah.
Scadabo. My apologies. He's showing some comparisons. Actually, he's out of Arizona State. Should I forgot to mention? Showing
Mhm.
comparisons to Marshawn Lynch, according to Hall of Famer Terrell Owens, and a poor man's Josh Jacobs. Um, Pretty decent year actually in college. Almost 6 yards per carry, 1,700 yards, 21 touchdowns. Also had 45 catches last year, which is pretty good for a running back. 600 yards. Raj, what's your take on Scadabo?
The biggest disservice you could do to this dude is compare him to like Peyton Hillis and Mike Allstott. Like it's so annoying people who just go that lazy route and say white running back. Let me compare it to like some white plotting dude because this guy's a freaking monster, man. Like absolute battering ram, physical as hell. Like the Marshawn Lynch comp. Like when I was looking at highlights, it's just driving on people, guys bouncing off him. But then he has enough quick elusiveness, like in a little box, right? In like a little in really tight spaces, he could be really elusive. That's why also I don't know, Nak, I don't know what you feel. I saw a little Jerome Bennis where he just has that like little pitter patter, like quick moving of his feet, like big guy, and can make people miss in a little phone booth. I think for him it's depending on it's always but depending on the team, right? So depending on the team he goes to, if he could be a bell cow, I like his bell cow ability even more than like a TreVeyon Henderson, and the productivity is there as well. So I think him and Quinshon Judkins is very similar. What stops him from being like a star is maybe just the lack of finishing speed, like
Mhm.
the 4.640, lack of acceleration. I don't think he gets to that top end gear to be able to really have like explosive seasons. But on the right team, I think he could be a very solid starter for the average length of that a running back is a starter, like a 3-4 years, and then he could be a really capable backup.
I saw a AJ Dillon comparison as well.
I don't like that. I don't think Dylan was to me like couldn't really be as elusive as like the thundering aspect,
He's
yes, but in elusiveness, I think Scadebo's way more elusive.
that I definitely agree. But I think you alluded to it. He does lack the breakaway speed, the home run hitting speed that you want in a running back, and his pass protection also needs a little bit of work, so that might keep him off the field a little bit. Fab, what did you think about Scadabo?
I got a player comp for Kyron Williams, which I think lines up pretty well with everything, his frame and what he brings. I like Skattebo a lot actually. For me, like right after Omarion Hampton, he's my number three as far as running backs are concerned. I think he's going to go a lot later, and I don't really know why, but I think whoever does draft this guy is going to get a stud. I think he does have a path to having a 3 down role. Um, he's really good. He's really, really good. And the fact that this guy has a lot of, like Roger, you say moxie. This guy plays with a chip on
Ton.
his shoulder. He has that, and you want that in a running back too. He doesn't shy away from contact, and he doesn't shy away from big blocks as well. The only problem is that sometimes he whiffs on them, which he needs to work on. But apart from that, like this is th- this guy's going to get drafted. He's going to get into a starting role, and he's going to make people watch because this guy's good. This guy's really, really good.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. He's gonna
Dude, he's
if
super
in the
elusive.
right situation, he's gonna
I,
definitely
I
excel.
just I'm having a hard time just figuring out which team is ideal for him because he's not a first rounder, second rounder TBD. But I think we all agree that the Hendersons, Judkins are going to go before him. So I mean, are we going to see
Patriots?
Patriots have a really stacked
interesting?
running back room, though, man.
I think I don't know.
Not
I think
really.
Ramondre is overrated. I don't. I think he's
Yeah, I
had
don't think
two.
it's I don't think it's stacked.
No,
Yeah,
stacked. I mean, like full, not stacked as in like.
Even 49ers as a rotational piece, I think might could work. The Ravens, like you don't know how long Henry has left. You bring in another guy. I don't know.
he'd be a sick Raider.
Raider would be
This guy would
really
be a
Raider
sick
would be
Raider,
really good
man.
too. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. Moving on to our boy Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, getting comps to Matt Forte and Le'Veon Bell. Definitely, I know, Raj, we had this conversation off camera. The Le'Veon Bell comp is really, when you watch his highlights, you could really see it. Had almost 1,600 yards last year, 21 touchdowns, and almost 7 yards per carry. These numbers are ridiculous. Added 21 catches for almost 200 yards and 2 TDs, 4.42 yards after contact per carry, which is absolutely ridiculous. These look like Le'Veon Bell
Yeah.
numbers. Fab, what's the like about this guy?
What's not to like? He ranks super high in yards after contact per attempt, breakaway runs. Like we're talking, when I say super high, like top 5 amongst all the college running backs. Um, Zone attempts too. He does operate a lot more in the zone, but you have to figure he's very smooth, good speed, good vision. I saw comparables to Todd Gurley, like a little bit of shades on that, but even comparables to Arian Foster in a running style. And I remember watching Arian Foster when he first started playing in his rookie season. The guy was gliding when he was playing. So you get comps to Arian Foster, you must be doing something good. Um, he's another guy like we just spoke about with Cam Scadabo, where he's going to go later on in the draft, and he could end up being a 3 down back for a player for a team with very minimal investment. Super elusive, like always, like a lot of these guys that we're looking at right now. Um, yeah, he's one to watch for sure. He's looking at a very nice potential future in his career.
Raj, what do you think?
Chef's kiss watching him play, man.
Yeah,
It's this is my favorite type of running back. Like as Fab alluded to, the gliding, smooth running, Foster, Matt Forte. So I think we talked about it, Knack. I think the Steelers would be really interesting. They run 58% zone outside zone.
I would love this
That
pick for
would
the
be a
Steelers.
Yeah.
great pick for them. We didn't talk about them, and I've been waiting a little bit, but I don't know how sold I am on Pacheco. I think he'd be an interesting fit with the Chiefs. Somehow, some reason they're going to bring back Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
I just think Pacheco's like not efficient as a runner, and just the way he runs, he's not suited for lasting very long in the NFL. And I think they need someone who could spell him a little bit and really play the running back position as it's supposed to be played versus just kind of running into people and being physical all the time.
Well, look, there was also a reason why he was a 7th round pick, right? There was nothing.
Exactly.
It's nothing. He had a good
Good point.
year.
Yeah.
He was on a good team. But this year, you saw his style got him hurt and came back, was never the same. Who knows what he looks like next year? Should be able to come back, but yeah, no, I definitely agree. He could be a great fit for a team like KC. I just don't see how he potentially fits if they're going to start Pacheco and then swing in with Kareem Hunt.
The thing with the Steelers is that he, from a uniform perspective, fits perfectly. Those
And then
Iowa
that
colors,
too,
it's the exact same as the Steelers
those
one.
highlights looked beautiful,
Yeah,
right? Exactly,
yeah.
it's the exact same trim, and those highlights. It was like I could get used to watching that on Sundays. As far as any fantasy value for him, I guess it's going to depend on where he goes. Obviously,
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
I
for
don't
it, man.
see him getting. Well, I just don't see him getting much work in the first year, and at least not in the very beginning of the season, unless he goes into a fantastic situation. But this could be one of those breakout stars towards the end of the fantasy season, when you look at the Bucky Irvings of last year, right, and maybe a little bit Tyrone Tracy, where these guys that were not necessarily household names get into good situations and earn their spot on the roster and earn their starting spot. We could be looking at one of those.
Yeah,
Rod, you had
yeah, he'd be good for like he'd be a good dynasty draft pick, like a stash guy for sure.
agreed. Okay, we'll get into our 7th running back of the evening, which is RJ Harvey from UFC. I think Raj seems to think it could be this year's Bucky Irving. Don't know too much about this guy. Had about 1,600 yards last year, 22 TDs, 7 yards per carry. We seem to be seeing a pattern here with the with the yards per carry.
It's nuts.
Also added 22 catches for 280 yards, 2 TDs. Raj, tell us more about Harvey.
Yeah, so smaller guy, 5'8", 208, 4'4", 40 at the combine. Really good vertical jump, 38. Solid broad jump, 10.7 inches. And really solid 20-yard shuffle for 3.4. So high ranking in PFF's win above average metric. Lots of missed tackles forced. And that's another thing with this class. Like, everyone is elusive. Everyone is physical. Yeah. Extremely productive player, back-to-back 1,400 yard seasons. And when you look at his highlights, what jumps out is the jump cut ability. Really, like, make people miss, breaking ankles. And I saw a few games, one against Kansas, I think the other against Oklahoma State, where, he only has 22 catches, but 280 yards, and they were big chunk plays. So he's able to really run routes out of the backfield, wheel routes, really get in deep, and he has really good hands. So I think Bucky Irving, the difference was that he ran the 40 at 4.57. So he was very productive. I think people were a bit concerned about his high-end speed. Right. But when you saw him play, his game tape, he played super fast, amazing elusiveness, and that's what I see with him. And I think with him being RJ Harvey, and I think the things that knock him down are the fact that he's undersized, dances a little bit at the line of scrimmage, and is weaker on pass pro. He had a 22 PFF grade last year, but really like this player again. Like, I find once you get from the third running back to like the seventh or eighth running back, there's a lot of interchangeability between those players.
Right. Anything to add to Mr. RJ Harvey?
He was a 2-year starter for the UCF Knights at the Big 12, and he put up 1,400 yards per year in both of those years. So this is another one of those guys where it's like, maybe because it doesn't come from a very big college, maybe because he's a little bit undersized, you have to wonder, like, the production is there. Like, we're talking about 38 touchdowns in 2 years. That's not nothing. And he is super elusive, like Roger mentioned before, too. So I think going to a good situation, I think he could be a very, very good, productive player in the right team. So I'm in on RJ Harvey quite a bit. Like, dances at the line of scrimmage, he's undersized, okay, but everything else he does, he could, it's a one jump cut away from taking it to the house, man. This guy has some serious elusiveness to him.
I'm also seeing some comparisons to Devin Singletary and Damian Pierce for RJ Harvey.
Not great names.
Not great. Actually, I got Duke Johnson and Tajai Spears.
Spears, I like Spears.
Spears is a little bit better.
Good.
Duke Johnson was good for the Browns when Nick Chubb went down.
Funny. Best fits I'm seeing is Texans, Commanders, or Giants.
Yeah,
Giants as a fit.
I'd be happy if he comes to the Giants.
Very happy with the Giants.
That'd be a very good one to
nice, nice rotational piece, And finally, our last running back for the day is going to be Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. So shades of Devon Achane, a little bit less speed. You have Kenny Gainwell and Giovanni Bernard. So 2024 stats, he had 1,500 yards, 22 TDs, 6 yards per carry, another 22 catches for 143 yards, 1,638 all-purpose yards. Fab, what do we like about Dylan Sampson?
So this is, the body of work on him is a little bit smaller than maybe the other guys that we've been speaking about right now. But again, like, another super high elusive rating on these running backs. He had 1,500 yards and 22 touchdowns for Tennessee last year. And again, you talk about production. This kid has it. He might not be super productive in the PPR perspective, but he's an explosive change of pace back, great lateral quickness, super dangerous in space. So you have to figure that he's another one of those guys are going to be taken on later on in the draft, where they can still provide a lot of value to the right team. I'm looking at comps, and this comp actually I like a lot. It's actually two New York Giants. One is a current one, and one's a former one. Tyron Tracy a little bit. I see more Ahmad Bradshaw with him, actually.
I wonder why he likes the comps.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ahmad Bradshaw, I really see that over here
I thought he
too.
was gonna say Tiki Barber.
No, Tiki
I know.
Barber
I
is
thought something else coming.
that's Ashton Jeanty over there. Tiki Barber, closest thing to him.
Oh boy.
Hey man, Tiki was a stud. So
On
I
the
like
field.
Dylan. Yeah, that's right, on the field. I
Boom,
like
boom,
Dylan Thompson.
boom.
I like Dylan Sampson a lot. I really do.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's very similar profile to Jalen Wright, who played at Tennessee last year. Was drafted by the Miami Dolphins. So the Devon Chen comparison I see a lot. So 929 of his almost 1,500 yards came after contact. So despite the small size, he can mix it up and bounce off tackles too. Aside from that, I think it's like when you watch it, it's a lot of shovel passes, a ton of inside zone from shotgun, like a ton of RPO. So what I was reading about why people are knocking him down is apparently Tennessee play like a very spread out, like a super gimmicky spread offense where the wide receivers play extremely wide, and so he's running on 5-man boxes on a consistent basis. So not sure how much that could be replicable in the NFL, but the production is the production, and in the SEC, man, like 1,400 yards is really good. So the
And
last thing also that I think is knocking him down is the ball security. So 4 fumbles in 2024, and kind of like very nonchalant in terms of how he carries the ball.
So that's why he's comped to Tyrone Tracy.
And Tiki Barber.
The fumbles.
Tiki Barber.
And
Tiki
Tiki
Barber had
Barber. Yeah, it's
big
true. He
fumble issues,
had
man.
very fumbleitis.
Yeah.
But then what happened after was coached out. So same thing can be happening with Mr. Sampson. So just don't knock the guy for being a little bit too cavalier with the ball. That can be coached out in the NFL for sure. Plus 22 touchdowns, man. Come on.
To me, this is like third down back to start. I mean, the pass pro, that'll be interesting.
That's what's
like
going to be hard to get him on
with
the
a rookie.
He's
Yeah.
going to add a little. He's going to have to add a little bit of weight to him, but he's not like he's 5'11", 6 foot. Like he's right there. He just needs a little bit of meat.
Yeah.
This could be. I was just looking at it right now. The Broncos with how Sean Payton loves just those dump offs to running backs. This could be it could be a really interesting fit, like in a later maybe day 2 or day 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think he probably goes further down, probably the third or fourth round running back. But that'll do it, guys, for our deep dive running backs. Well done, boys. That was excellent. If you liked our running back show, please go check out our QB show. That was last week's episode. And next week, we'll be doing a deep dive on the wide receivers. So please keep an eye out for that. We will be posting all sorts of content in between. So please make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and get us wherever you get your podcasts. I think that'll do it for us, boys. Raj, that's cue the music. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Music coming to you in Quebec.
Yeah, it's coming live from Earth,
Montreal, Canada, Quebec.
the Milky Way galaxy.
Oh man,
That was good.
That was something else.
That was good.
Peace out.
Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.